Well, over the past few months, we've read what we call the love chapter several times. And you might know that the chapter ends with the well-known words, "And now abide faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love." And that's the title of today's short message, at least my notes are short. The greatest of these. Now, a few weeks ago, a good friend and brother in Christ here in Second Life reminded us of the words penned in the New Testament, "Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up." And I appreciated being reminded of that. Let's go ahead and read that in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. "We know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. And if anyone thinks that he knows anything, he knows nothing yet as he ought to know. But if anyone loves God, this one is known by him." Now, verse 2 is very interesting. If anyone thinks he knows anything, he knows nothing as he ought to know. Now, to feel as though we are in line with this passage, some of us might take the position, and I've done this myself, I know nothing. But do you really believe that? Or do you still feel as though you do know something, something which, and some things which, when they come up, you will defend? If anyone thinks he knows anything, he knows nothing as he ought to know. Now that is the fleshly mind, which worships knowledge and facts and positions and beliefs. And that knowledge puffs up. It generates pride. Now, knowledge in itself is no more evil than money. It's the love of money that's the root of all sorts of evil. Most of us, for example, know how to drive a car. We know how to read. We know how to count. We know how to tie our shoelaces. We know that we all have knowledge. Now, in context, Paul was talking about eating foods that had been sacrificed to idols. There were various opinions at the time about that. People would cite the knowledge that they had about the subject and the indisputable conclusions they made about the issue. And of course, everyone thought that they were right and the others were wrong. Knowledge puffs up. Or we could say belief in knowledge puffs up. Or identifying with knowledge puffs up. Or taking your knowledge and your conclusions about that knowledge so seriously puffs up. Knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. And if anyone thinks he knows anything, he knows nothing as he ought to know. How should we ought to know? Well, let's read the next verse. Verse 2. "And if anyone thinks that he knows anything, he knows nothing yet, as he ought to know." Verse 3. "But if anyone loves God, this one is known by him." And here's the thing. Loving God is a two-way street. Can't go one way. If you're known by God, known in the way this verse is saying, you know God. And not in the sense of the knowledge that puffs up. That kind of knowledge is what most of us have about God. We can quote all sorts of facts about God and think that we know him because of that. Well, God is holy. God is just. God is merciful. God is perfect. God is all-powerful. God is all-knowing. God is ever-present. God is love. But all those revelations about God came from encounters with Him. If you only know about God, you do not truly know Him at all. And one way you can know if you know God is by learning 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Love is patient, love is kind, love is, and so on. Yes, we could mimic the traits that are listed there, and that's a good thing to do. But you need to, if you need to conjure up the acts of love, then something is missing. Love is a fruit. And that something that's missing is a right now walk with God, with love. It is not the kind of knowledge that puffs up, the kind that can be argued and preached, the kind that can start wars and factions, the kind that divides us and unites cliques and denominations. Rather, we're talking about experiential knowledge. And I don't mean facts gained from experience. Rather, I mean the type of knowledge that cannot be adequately put into words or into a mental position. It cannot be passed on in a sermon or a book. Instead, it can only be pointed to and shared only by direct personal experience. This is the kind of knowing that can fully come only when you let go of all you think you know and you fully surrender. And by surrender, I don't mean resignation. It's the type of surrender of which Jesus spoke. Observe the birds. They fully trust God to meet their needs. They search for food. They build nests. They fight predators. But they do not worry about tomorrow or dwell in yesterday. They dwell instead in love. In this way, the birds know God much better than the most religiously astute among us. And Jesus told us to learn from them. Learn from the flowers. Not the learning of facts, but the learning how to be with God, with love. You know, most of us have a constant backdrop of very subtle fear. It's so subtle that, and we're so used to it, we don't even know it's there. But we sometimes pray or go to church because in the background there's a fear that not doing so will have negative consequences. We do this or that, or we don't do this or that because there is a fear, no matter how big or how tiny. But we know that perfect love casts out all fear. That's in 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment, but he who fears has not been made perfect in love. We fear the IRS. We fear the government. We fear criminals. We fear extremists. We fear that the wrong people will get elected or stay elected. We fear rejection. We fear loss. We fear some sort of lack. We fear abandonment. We fear so many things because we are not fully dwelling in love right now. And whatever ideas you might have about what love means or what love is, that is not it. When you truly know love, there's no need to define it. It does not need to be, and it cannot be put into words. Not really. You can only point people to it and know that they will not and they cannot know that to which you are pointing until they experientially know it for themselves firsthand. And so today, I pray for that personal encounter with love, with perfection, with eternity, with God, with presence. I pray that you will discover how to fully surrender, how to release all of your attachments to what you think you know, how to step out of the fear that would keep you from surrendering and from that releasing those things. And today, I pray that you enter into the eternity that dwells inside of you right now, where God is. That perfect presence of God, of love. And that despite what you know or what you think you know, you step into that realm of perfect peace and blissful joy that can only be found when you completely let go of everything. No attachments. And you dwell completely in the always present, all pervasive heavenly realm of love.